Welcome to the Mike Miller Show.
Welcome to the show, folks. Happy Monday. Man, what a weekend. Jessica, there is not enough popcorn on the planet to satisfy everybody that's going to be glued to the computer screen, to the television, to social media between now and November. It's just getting better and better. And so we got a bunch of stuff about that today. And again, you guys, welcome to the show. Jessica Jane, extraordinaire producer. Jessica, how was your weekend?
It was pretty good. I actually did not watch TV or anything with politics, just so I could decompress a little bit from all the crazy.
Well, because and you've been out and busy and gone and everything, so
yes,
you just kind of
I've been
hung
actually I've been trying to catch up with work, but for the most part, it's been very good.
I'm back into Full Metal Jacket mowing mode. Remember we talked about that last summer.
Wow.
Sunday, it's been cold here, dude. It was you guys, I'm outside of Indianapolis. It's like 2 nights in a row, frost warning, right? But that was okay. Yesterday it was 50 when I was mowing. So I mowed the estate. And as you know, I like to walk versus using a mower. So trimming in the whole bit, about 4.5 hours. Riveting radio, but I actually like doing that stuff. So that was pretty much my weekend. And then I just caught up on stuff and wrote like a madman, been on a bit of a roll. For those of you new to the show, I am contributing editor with Independent Journal Review. Speaking of Independent Journal Review, at the bottom of the hour, one of the good guys, political writer, well, they're all good guys, but political writer Frank Camp will join us. And Frank always has I shouldn't say unique, but he's an interesting take on the goings on and is almost as snarky as I am. So that'll work out just fine. 2 big stories, Jessica, if you didn't pay attention. The New York Times hit piece that came out Saturday on the Donald. Did you see anything about that?
I did not.
Okay, so see, you can grab some popcorn today too. They interviewed in the neighborhood of 50 women from the Donald's past and possibly present. So that went down. And then, of course, the Donald, I put up an article on IJR this morning about this. The first visible tweet that I could find from the Donald was at 4:50 a.m. or 4:20 a.m. Sunday morning. The Donald was up pacing or whatever, and he just went on a complete barrage against the Times. So that happened. So we got that to talk about. But the interesting story, and this happened before the weekend. You see this thing with this John Miller that supposedly called, well, not supposedly, this John Miller, and I say that in quotes, called People magazine 25 years ago to talk about how well Trump was doing. Do you know this story?
I don't know this story at all.
It was, well, let's just say it sounded a whole lot like Donald Trump.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He said, if you want to know the truth and, all of those signature phrases that Trump did.
Everything's huge.
Well, it was more to tell you the truth if you want to know the truth. It was that kind of stuff. It sounded just like him, like he wasn't even trying to disguise his voice. And, of course, he denies that it was him. He said, it wasn't me.
That's hilarious.
Oh, and he says, I suppose you're going to, he says, what, this is 25 years ago, right? And they go, yeah. And he goes, I suppose you're going to say, I used an alias. So, which was saying I did this 25 years ago and I used an alias. Mm-hmm. And so, was it him? Hell yes, of course it was him. So he's still denying it. And then it wasn't this Katrina Pearson. You probably don't know who she is. She's a spokesperson. And every time she just opens her mouth to change feet. I mean, this woman is she's hilarious. She suggested that that Team Hillary planted the story. And then Where did this come from? Um, I think a writer who was either involved at the time and is involved again came out and said that Trump himself planted this story about this thing 25 years ago for attention. Now, why would he want that kind of attention? Of course, when you try to figure out the way the Donald thinks, it sometimes is complicated.
Yeah, I don't see why he would plant that, but I
Yeah, why
mean,
would he bring that up? If I were him,
yeah.
I would want that like to be one of those things that stayed under the rug. Not that it's a big deal.
Unless he thought it's better that it come out now instead of when he's actually, you know, I guess when the
That
election is in full force or
okay,
something like
that
that.
that would be true if they come to him and they say, okay, come on, fess up. Okay, this thing's like 25 years old. You were like, in your 40s, and dude, it's you. I mean, listen to it. They've had forensic voice experts say it's him. So he would want it to come out, I would think. And again, I think logically, he always does not always necessarily, but you would want it maybe to come out if you would say, yeah, you know what, it was kind of silly. I mean, I did it, but hey, what are you going to do? But it comes out and he adamantly denies that it was him. And it was him. So
Wow.
why would you want that? And now people are all over, well, he said 25 years ago, no big deal. It's not like, no, it speaks to his character right now. He's lying that it was him and about something silly. So anyway, that happened. Um, and then of course this New York Times thing is big. It's the story featured, blasted all over.
See that
Um,
I heard a little bit about. I mean, I heard about like the stuff with women, but I didn't realize it was the New York Times interviewing all these
oh,
women.
this is huge. The
Mhm.
name of the this was on Saturday. The title, quote, "Crossing the Line: How Donald Trump Behaved with Women in Private." And this thing goes on and on with interviews with multiple people and stuff that he did and supposedly did and allegedly did and stuff. One of the women, in fact, there may be a couple at this point, but one of the women was on Fox and Friends this morning. She's a former model. Don't have her name in front of me. It makes no difference. Swears up and down that they took her out of context and that she doesn't remember having a bad experience with Trump. But this is just, I mean, and so it begins, as they say, because
Yeah.
we've heard for quite a while that major media, so-called mainstream media, lying in wait till Donald sews it up. And there have been reports that they're sitting on stuff, that there are things they know. There's this rumor coming back out. I just saw this morning again on one of my Facebook threads that he supposedly, and again, this is all alleged, but ran for a while a high-priced call girl service in New York City among his
Really.
pals. Um, this is going to just be, that's why I said there's not enough popcorn on the planet. This is going to be drip, drip, drip stuff. And I
Mhm.
suspect it's going to get uglier than it already is. So
Yeah. I mean, this is just the beginning,
just the
obviously.
beginning.
Yeah.
And, and again, let me throw this out there for those who have questioned me in the past. Although, if you read my stuff, I've said this multiple times. No, I do not support Donald Trump. I will never endorse Donald Trump, but I will vote for my party's nominee because Hillary Clinton must not become president of the United States and be in a position to appoint justices to the Supreme Court. That's about as complicated as it gets for me. But I don't know. It's just gonna it's gonna get bad. So anyway, that's that. We'll talk about that with Frank just a little bit. All right. So this whole thing about whether or not GOP is going to rally around Donald. If one takes a trip through Facebook, it's like the Civil War, right? The North and the South. It's still the Trump forces versus the Cruz forces, and it's a really ugly thing. But I mean, we're talking, within the party hierarchy, and of course, the question with Paul Ryan but Reince Priebus, poor Reince. I mean, this guy. First of all, the guy's named Reince Priebus. Can you imagine?
I don't even understand where a name like that comes from.
I mean, Reince. I mean, let's name him something that all the rest of the kids will make fun of, right? And our last name is Priebus anyway.
Yeah.
So let's Reince. Let's name him Reince. Where have you heard? Oh, I made it up, but I think it's funny with Priebus. I mean, I don't know. I mean, but anyway, poor old Reince Priebus, RNC head. He's had, first of all, I mean, just think of this guy over the last however many months. I mean, he's had to, I can't even believe this is happening to us, and then he finally realizes it's happening to us. So Donald Trump is a presumptive nominee. So he's got to kind of try to put that face on. And now he's thinking, we don't want to pretend, but if we have to, we will, because our primary objective is to defeat Hillary Clinton. Our only first objective now, being we are where we are, is to defeat Hillary Clinton. So Priebus Sunday, we have a short clip. I cut this thing down. The interview is about 8 minutes long. For an article I wrote this morning, I cut the clip down to, I don't know, about a minute and a half. But Priebus is asked about Donald's still refusal to release his income tax returns. Listen to how Priebus, I don't want to say he defends Trump about it, but let's listen to what Reince had to say about Donald's tax returns.
Let me ask you, your nominee, your presidential nominee from 4 years ago, is calling on Trump to release his taxes, saying, quote, "It is disqualifying for a modern-day presidential nominee to refuse to release tax returns to the voters. There is only one logical explanation for Mr. Trump's refusal to release his returns. There is a bombshell in them." So let me ask you, do you agree with Mitt Romney on this, or do you agree with Donald Trump, who said it is none of our business?
Well, look, first of all, I believe that the American people look at someone like Donald Trump and say, okay, here's a guy on the outside. Here's a guy that's never run for office. And I just have to tell you, after a year of dealing with this primary one-on-one, and it's been a lot, I don't think the traditional playbook applies, John. We've been down this road for a year, and it doesn't apply. He's rewritten the playbook.
So he doesn't have to return those taxes?
It's interesting to analyze Donald Trump based on the old, you know what? It's going to be up to the American people. I mean, they're going to have to decide whether that's a big issue or not. I think, though, that Donald Trump represents such a massive change to how things are done in Washington that people don't look at Donald Trump as to whether or not he releases his taxes or what this story was of 30 years ago. People look at Donald Trump and say, is this person going to cause an earthquake in Washington, D.C., and make something happen? That is it. That's how he is being judged by the American people. So all these things that we've been analyzing for a year and that Mitt Romney's obsessing over, it hasn't done a thing. And that, I think, people are missing about Donald Trump.
So is Priebus right? Do people not care? I mean, it would appear so. It would appear that when we say people, we're talking about avid #Trump fan. But, we've said before, they don't seem to care what he says or what he does or the flip-flops or the inconsistencies or, dare I say, sometimes lies. They don't care. And I'm not saying they necessarily should, Jessica. I mean, they hate Washington, D.C. They hate politics as usual. And Donald Trump is their guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. It's like what people have been saying. Donald Trump is the Obama for the Republican Party. Everybody, but because I remember back when Hillary was running against Obama, everybody was like, well, Hillary has the experience, Hillary has this, blah, 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 blah. We don't know anything about Obama. The Democrat Party was saying we don't know anything about Obama, but hope and change was all anybody could talk about, and that's the only thing anybody cared about. So I feel like this is exactly what's happening here with Make America Great Again. Doesn't matter how, we're going to do it.
Tom Brokaw told Charlie Rose on PBS the night before the election, and it was a question. He said, "Do you realize we're about to elect a man, president of the United States, of whom we know virtually nothing about?"
I remember that. I remember
Do you remember that?
interview. Yeah, that was very interesting and insightful.
And it was true. And, you know, I used to joke about him on other shows that, you know, he could run down George Bush and set him on fire, and his popularity would have gone up 10 points. And, you know, I don't know who Trump at this point would set on fire other than the media. And look, this guy is not stupid. We have a clip where he actually says that we're going to play in a bit. But no, he knows that people, possibly the only thing people hate more than the DC establishment, or at least equally, is the media. And, you know, every chance he gets where there's a rally, right? Look at all those cameras back there and the media scum and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he knows people love it. So Donald Trump may be or may not be a lot of things. You can put stuff on both sides of that ledger. But Donald Trump's not stupid, and he's a master marketer. So speaking of whether Donald is stupid or not, we have a clip from, and speaking of Obama, Barack Obama delivered the commencement address yesterday at Rutgers University. And again, I have clipped the clip, if you will, to fit it into an article the length I wanted it to be. We have a short clip of Barack Hussein Obama. And I never say that, but it irritates me. Well, he always irritated me. But mocking Donald Trump's intelligence or lack thereof. Let's listen to the President of the United States yesterday.
The world is more interconnected than ever before, and it's becoming more connected every day. Building walls won't change that. Facts, evidence, reason, logic, an understanding of science, these are good things. These are qualities you want in people making policy. These are qualities you want to continue to cultivate in yourselves as citizens. We traditionally have valued those things, but if you were listening to today's political debate, you might wonder where this strain of anti-intellectualism came from. So class of 2016, let me be as clear as I can be. In politics and in life, ignorance is not a virtue. It's not cool to not know what you're talking about. That's not keeping it real or telling it like it is. That's not challenging political correctness. That's just not knowing what you're talking about.
And he was just reveling in that. Look, I'm with him on anti-intellectualism, but you know, he connects the dots between anti-intellectualism and ignorance. I would suggest to Mr. Obama there's a lot of sensible daylight in between the two. So he hammers Trump for being ignorant. Never mentions him by name, but you look at the faces, you look at the laughter, you heard the applause. Everybody in the place knew who he was talking about, right? That wasn't too tough to figure out. All right, so now let's. I just found this about an hour before I came on and quickly shot it up on the site as well. But both Prime Minister David Cameron and the newly elected mayor of London, a Mr. Khan, who's a Muslim, the first Muslim mayor of Londonistan. It's been Londonistan for a while. It might as well have a Muslim mayor. But they have not taken kindly to Donald Trump's call for a temporary ban on Muslim refugees in the United States. And let me say quickly, before we get into this, because this is a clip of Donald pretty ticked off. I think Donald Trump got an unfair shake on this last week, and I think people across the board put words in his mouth. The headlines were Donald Trump backs up and says, well, I don't really want to ban Muslims after all. What he was suggesting, and I watched the clip a couple times just to make sure that I wasn't the only one not getting it. But what he was saying, in effect, was, I hope it doesn't have to be in place very long. Now, again, nuancing, I don't know. But at any rate, Donald Trump was interviewed by Piers Morgan, of all people. Remember Piers, the failed CNN host, he is the host of Good Morning Britain. And he interviewed Trump this morning about Cameron's comments, as well as Khan's. And you have to see the clip. I mean, we're going to play it, but he's red-faced. He is ticked off at Cameron. And Morgan asks him if he is, and let's hear what he had to say.
Well, number one, I'm not stupid, okay? I can tell you that right now. Just the opposite. Number two, in terms of divisive, I don't think I'm a divisive person. I'm a unifier. Unlike our president now, I'm a unifier.
You're president and he's the British Prime Minister.
It looks like we're not going to have a very good relationship. Who knows? I hope to have a good relationship with him. But it sounds like he's not willing to address the problem either.
He says, I hope Donald Trump loses the election. My message to Donald Trump and his team is your views of Islam are ignorant.
All right. When he won, I wished him well. Now, I don't care about him. I mean, it doesn't make any difference to me about him. Let's see how he does. I mean, let's see if he's a good mayor.
Are you offended by what he said?
Yeah, I am, because he doesn't know me, never met me, doesn't know what I'm all about. I think they're very rude statements, and frankly, tell him I will remember those statements. A very nasty statement.
Ooh, he's the Donald doesn't forget. Tell him I'll remember those statements. What Cameron said, by the way, and he reiterated it after Trump's interview. They tracked him down after this interview, and he reiterated again. He thought that Trump's call for a temporary, at least, ban on Muslim immigrants, refugees entering the United States was and is, quote, divisive, stupid, and wrong. So, Jessica, the Donald is taking incoming from multiple positions, isn't he?
He is, and he has, and it's interesting to see. It's interesting to see how it's kind of what Rance said. It doesn't matter. What normally would torpedo a campaign has not mattered at all.
You know, though, I think, and it's just a hunch. Oh, it won't impact, I don't think. Well, it's not, I don't think. No, the Trump supporters won't faze him in the least. But this was the first interview. Did you watch this while it was playing?
I did watch it, but I saw his face. He looked very angry.
This is the first one where he really, you can tell it got to, because he asks him, and he says yes. But his face is red. He's angry. He's controlling it. Generally, he can be peevish and petty, right? But generally, at least I cannot recall recently seeing him this angry. And I'm wondering, because this is just going to intensify on him. I mean, it's going to, excuse me, it can be drip, 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 and there's going to be stuff come out of left field. He's going to have to be denying and batting stuff down between now and November. This call girl thing is going to come up. There's going to be stuff that's going to come up that we have no idea about, that he doesn't even know about. And I just wonder how he's going to handle it as it builds.
I don't know. I really don't know, because sometimes he not to say takes things in stride, but he's very like sly in his comeback.
He is.
And then, but other times, yeah, I do think he just kind of melts down for a little while and then kind of has to back up. So he might still waver back and forth. I don't know if it'll actually like build up on him.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Like I said, popcorn, a lot of popcorn. What do we have? 4 or 5 minutes until the break. I wrote something yesterday about Chelsea Clinton.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever written about Chelsea. And she, You talk about a chip off the old block, if you will. This thing, I just put it up on a whim, and I'm looking at it right now. It's got like 127,000 views and 4,000 shares. So apparently people care about what Chelsea says as well as Mama. Here's my headline. Chelsea Clinton claims 8-year-old asked her about paying for college. And then I said, boy, was Twitter ready. You know what? It just makes me laugh when politicians and, other high profile people, supporters of politicians and the like, when they take to Twitter, to the Twitters, as some say, and put stuff up with no apparent either knowledge or concern that what's about to happen, right, as a result. It's as if only their followers are paying attention, right? Well, not so much. So she on Friday, Chelsea says, and again, this is from her tweet. There's a picture of her and her mother, Hillary on college campuses, talking about the new college compact. An 8-year-old just asked me a question about paying for college. That shouldn't be a worry for a kid in America. Now,
okay.
Yeah, setting aside the question of whether an 8-year-old who wasn't a plant, that could have happened. Hillary's been caught with plants before.
Well, I mean, the kid probably could also have been primered by his parents too.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a plant. But setting aside the question of whether an 8-year-old child had a conversation with Chelsea Clinton over the rising cost of higher education in America, setting that aside for a minute, Twitter had a ball. Do you know Charles C.W. Cook is? National Review.
Yeah.
English fellow. Love me some Charles C.W. Cook. He kicked off the festivities. He says, an 8-year-old just asked me how he'll pay for his taxes. So let's abolish taxes, right? And then it was like go time. Dissident biker at Chelsea Clinton. I don't believe an 8-year-old asked you about paying for taxes. Another one. If an 8-year-old told you she was worried about paying a mortgage someday, would you give us all free housing? Embarrassing. Gee, Chelsea, who in the world put that problem in their head in the first place? Well, again, plant. I mean, come on. It's an 8-year-old child. These get better. These get actually, depending on, better or worse. Chelsea Clinton, an 8-year-old asked me why your mom looked into the eyes of another mom and lied about her son's death. Hashtag
Ooh.
Benghazi. See?
Yeah.
Yeah. This one's even better. Vilified, ostracized is the Twitterer. Do you say there's this debate online, Twitterer or tweeter?
I say tweeter.
See, that seems to me, but the official thing from the Twitter higher ups is Twitterer, but it just doesn't seem to work for me.
It doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of times like when I'm writing about it, I'll just say Twitter user. But this one from Vilified Ostracized, a 15-year-old just asked me why Jeffrey Epstein wants her to go on an airplane ride with your dad.
Oh my God.
Same guy. At Chelsea Clinton, did you explain cronyism, cattle futures, and fake charitable contributions? And then, of course, the inevitable. There were a slew of these, but here's just a couple because I know we're coming up on a minute. At Chelsea Clinton, how much have your parents taken from colleges and speaking fees? Part of the solution or part of the problem? That was awesome. And then finally, from Natasha Fatal at Chelsea Clinton, idea. Perhaps Mommy Dearest should stop asking colleges for exorbitant speaking fees. And she includes a little snippet from Hillary's speech in Missouri where she was paid $275,000. So this is why, it can be this, or how we've talked in the past about drunk tweeting from Cher, stuff like this. Yeah, I mean, these people, they just don't it's just like they lean into a left hook and say, hit me as many times as you can before I fall down. Speaking of down, we're down at the bottom of the hour. Listen, come on back. Frank Camp, IGR.
Doug, I never thought I could go back to school, but when it's this easy, it fits.
I'm right there with you, Jackie, taking classes, watching lectures in the living room on the iPad. It's not hard.
I can be a mom, make dinner, get my classwork done, and not miss a moment with my family. It's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Hey, it's Jackie Velasquez, and if Doug and I can do this, you can do this too. Higher education with Liberty University Online.
Find out more about completing your college degree at the world's largest Christian university, Liberty University. Get all the details right now. Grab your cell and dial pound 250. When prompted, say the keyword Liberty University.
Training champions for Christ since 1971, Liberty University Online. Find out more about learning online. Dial pound 250, then say the keyword Liberty University.
Liberty University Online with hundreds of degree programs to choose from. Call now, pound 250. Say the keyword Liberty University.
That's pound 250, say keyword Liberty University.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
We are joined by political writer, Independent Journal Review, Frank Camp. Frank, at the top of the hour, I called you one of the good guys, but we're all pretty much good guys. So anyway, dude, welcome to the news show.
Yeah, it's nice to be on.
Yeah. So I suggested at the outset today that there's not enough popcorn on the planet to satisfy everybody that's between now and November, right? Glued to the TV, to social media.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, man, it's just crazy, isn't it?
It's going to be the show of the century, with a very sad ending, regardless of what happens.
Are you the guy who called this?
Like watching a tragedy.
Yeah, I remember a show in the past. Somebody called this their Super Bowl. Was that you?
Yes, that was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, politics in general is my Super Bowl, but election years more so.
It's just you just can't beat it. So if somebody would have told you, hell, even the day that Trump made the announcement that here we would be on the 16th of May with Donald J. Trump as the presumptive nominee. I mean, what would you do after you stopped laughing? What would you have said?
I would have said, though I have no confidence in the American voter, that still probably wouldn't happen.
Right.
So my confidence level in the American voter hasn't changed, which is to say I have very little confidence. But I would have, no way. Never would have thought he would be the likely nominee, yes, barring some giant event.
Do you think, this is probably a silly question because I know how you answer, but do you think that, let me ask it this way. What percentage of the people that support Trump? Because let's be honest, we have, on one hand, people who have disappointed the likes of you and I, like Ann Coulter, like Sean Hannity, like Laura Ingraham, like, to an extent, Rush Limbaugh. And we could continue with names. I mean, we have some people that don't go bowling on Friday night, right? And then on the other hand, we have the other people. What percentage of Trump supporters if you just had to guess, couldn't care, I hate it when people say could care less, couldn't care less.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my gosh, couldn't care less about what he thinks, what he believes, how many times he flip-flops, any potential scandals or caught in lies. I mean, what percentage of his supporters do you suspect fall into that category?
I would say probably, honestly, 40 to 50% of his supporters are the cultists, the ones that just, he can do and say whatever he wants. I read something today. new Trump is true Trump. So when he flip-flops, it's just a memory erase from previous, it doesn't matter what he says. It's what he says now that matters.
And it really is like a cult, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is. And most people, the more I look into it, the more people are saying they don't care. They're not conservative. They're like, we know he's not conservative, and we like that.
But then they hammer.
They just want an authoritarian.
Well, yeah, but and then on the other, in the next breath, they'll hammer, quote, Rhino Romney or Rhino whomever, because they're not Trump. I mean, they contradict themselves as much or more than he does.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's because they emulate him, just like the cult figure he is. They emulate their leader.
It's kind of like mini Trump me's, mini me.
It is. I would like to see a mini Trump.
Somebody needs to do that. Somebody needs to come out with it. Find some. I almost use the M word, which is not politically correct. We can't talk about midgets, but someone needs to find. Someone needs to, just like they did in Austin Powers. Somebody needs to find a little man and dress him up like Trump.
It would be amazing.
Put the red tie and the whole. It's a phenomenon. I mean, I just don't think there's any question about it. I early on, when it became apparent that this guy is actually probably going to pull this off, then I try to get rational with myself and go through that whole thing where, okay, only like 19 to 20% of the people have actually voted in primaries or participated in caucuses, and Trump has gotten less than a third, well, maybe on average 35 to 40% now, maybe a little bit more. But that it's going to take a whole lot more people than that to win the general election, and that's not going to happen. I mean, that's kind of the thought process I was going through. And now you start looking at some of these polls, even in swing states, and again, recognizing that it's 50 state elections, not a general election. So the path to 270 for any Republican is getting harder and harder each cycle. But I mean, I'm really not so sure that I would be completely and utterly shocked if he ended up pulling it off.
The approximate number, I believe, for the first 39 states plus D.C. to vote, and I calculated this myself for something I was writing, is 38% of the Republican vote that he's gotten. So the rest have voted against him, essentially. And he will bring a certain chunk of the people who voted against him over. That's for sure. I don't know that it will necessarily be enough. That being said, the strangeness of this election cycle and what has been able to be accomplished, anything is possible. And increasingly, anything is probable. So I wouldn't be blown away if we were to win, because Hillary is as flawed as she is, even though Donald Trump's equally bad, in my opinion.
I played a clip from Priebus over the weekend, and he's all in now, right? I mean, he's defending Trump.
Yeah.
Oh, he's defending Trump on the tax return thing, and he's defending him against just everything, because he has to. I mean, it's his job.
It's his job.
But he again made the comment, as many have, that conventional wisdom as it relates to Trump is out the window. So, when you start thinking or looking at polls of women that won't support, look at, just within the Republican Party, the percentage of women that say there's no way they'd vote for him. But just you look at women across the board, you look at Hispanics, 19, 20% maybe. You look at blacks. I mean, again, when you start trying to get rational, you say to yourself, even if he, 60%, maybe let's say 70% of Republicans that don't like Donald Trump actually vote for him. Let's just go there. I mean, you start doing that. You have to say to yourself, there's no way. But again, there's a way, because there was a way for him to put this together. And I think that, the great unknown is how many people he's going to drag out of the woodwork that normally wouldn't vote.
Yeah. And to be honest, the problem with that, though, is he may drag a lot of people out who wouldn't have voted, new voters who necessarily may not understand the process. But the media, on the other hand, is going to hammer him for the next 5 months because they've taken a light touch up until now, as light as they could, without looking super suspicious. And now they've already started, and now they're just going to hammer him until Election Day. So between the dislike of Trump in general, even among Republicans, and the way the media is going to obliterate him, I think don't think he's going to win in November, regardless of who he pulls out to vote for him.
I was suggesting to Jessica that I'm not real sure that that he can handle it. I think I put up an article earlier today, and it's the interview that he did with Piers Morgan on Good Morning Britain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's responding to comments that Cameron and the new Muslim mayor of Londonistan made about him, calling him stupid and ignorant and stuff. And he was visibly angry when he was talking to Morgan. In fact, Morgan asked him, and he says, "Yeah, I'm whatever." I mean, he was red-faced and whatever. And you just kind of start to think, maybe as this accumulates, because it's going to be nonstop. I've laughed to myself at Trump supporters on my Facebook threads that, he owns the media and, he's, blah, blah, blah. And, I just kind of laughing to myself thinking, you guys have no idea what, and it's what you just said, Frank. You hear reports. I know you've seen the stuff, like they're sitting on stuff, or they got all these teams out there digging. And of course they're going to treat him relatively moderately, if you will, moderate with, until he sews it up, because they want him to be Hillary's opponent, and they got their wish.
Yeah, and it's along the lines of what Cruz and other people said. He is possibly the only Republican of the 17 that were originally there that could lose to Hillary. Like, almost any other candidate could beat her, because she is so damaged and so flawed and so vile and witch-like that she should be easily dispatched. But Trump is equally flawed in so many ways that I think he's the only candidate that can lose to her. And so they were soft on him, and now Washington Post has 20 people assigned to dig into his past. The New York Times just put out that hit piece on him. It's going to be a continuing avalanche. I guarantee you, and I'm predicting this, that the New York Times will release the tape of him. It will get leaked, quote unquote, accidentally, allegedly, and that'll get released. Everything's going to come out.
Were you surprised that this New York Times piece was as extensive as it was and came out as soon as it did?
No, I'm sure they've been sitting on it for months. I mean, it's extensive. It probably took them a while to put it together, and I guarantee it's been put together for some time, probably. And they were just waiting till it was a safe bet that he was going to snag the nomination, and then they set it to release. They've been preparing for this, I think, for the last several months, for the real possibility of him taking the nomination. And I think that's when they started in earnest to pile up Oppo research.
I mean, you almost got, I envisioned like the old Ben Bradley war room thing at the Washington Post, where they literally have meetings just about this. Who's got what on Trump? Kind of like, what's his name? Harvey Weinstein, or no, what's it? No. Harvey, the guy on TMZ.
Yeah.
How they stand around and talk about like who's got, well, okay, that's good. Let's go get that. I mean, because it's so blatantly obvious. So I don't know.
And in that regard, I mean, I hesitate to ever use the phrase "I feel bad for Trump," but in that regard, I feel bad for him as a candidate, not necessarily as a person, because the media is so strongly biased against him. Other than Fox, obviously, who's in the tank for him, but the media will just destroy him. And even though a lot of what was in the New York Times piece is relevant, the parts that aren't, like the woman who came out today and said she was misquoted, will be dismissed. And then Trump did make a good point, is why don't they go after the Clintons for their, misconduct? And of course they won't, because they want Clinton to win. So it's a media double standard. And in that way, I do feel bad for him as a candidate, although I do like seeing Trump get beaten up, because I don't like him.
I feel the same way. I mean, it's just he thought that, he doesn't like politicians anyway, but if he thought that construction in New York City was rough, he's about to see what rough really is about in the rough and tumble world of hardball politics, because it's going to be brutal. If speaking of Hillary, in the email thing, do you think that there will be a recommendation, a referral for an indictment, first of all, from the FBI? Let's start with that chunk first. What do you think about that?
It's so hard to say. I think there will not be a recommendation for indictment. I think many in the FBI may want that, but I don't think ultimately there will be a recommendation for indictment based on what I've read so far and just the atmosphere. So
explain because Comey is he's a pretty straight shooter, and he was the guy that went after Petraeus, right? And he has bucked the system in the past. So what are you reading?
The general feel I'm getting is that they keep asking the FBI, is there going to be an indictment? There's going to be an indictment, and he keeps saying, we're keeping this straight and narrow. We want to get the investigation right. But people like Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin have been interviewed, and nothing extraordinary. Even Guccifer, is being interviewed by the FBI, and as of yet, nothing has necessarily come out that has indicated that she would get an indictment. Guccifer did say that he breached her email. Whether that's true or not yet to be proven. And if that is true, she could be indicted for negligence, I believe. So there is a possibility. It's just an atmosphere. It's just a feeling I'm getting that as time goes by, that there won't be an indictment.
How does it happen where, you mentioned Cheryl Mills, and you saw this story, I'm sure, but so the interview is happening, and you have the FBI. Did you? Okay, so you talk about that and what happened. Share that with the folks, and then explain to me how and why that agreement with Mills and her attorney would even happen.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I pitched this story, or I was assigned the story, I don't recall, and I wrote it. And during Cheryl Mills' interview with the FBI, and I'm on this story right now, she was asked, her questioner asked her a question about the procedure, quote, the procedure used to produce emails to the State Department so they could possibly be released publicly. And that was off limits. The FBI proceeded to ask that question anyway, and she apparently stormed out of the room with her attorney. The reason it's off limits was due to, quote, attorney-client privilege. And I didn't understand that because that doesn't make sense to me. So I asked a friend of mine, Rachel Alexander, who is the former Assistant Attorney General for Arizona, and she told me, and I'm quoting, Mills is allowed to waive that privilege if she wants. Of course, the question would be referring to a conversation she had with her attorney. If she opens that door and reveals the conversation, it could allow them to question her further about their confidential conversation. It could be a Pandora's box. So this section is off limits because of attorney-client privilege, because it could lead to further investigation that could reveal more than they want to have revealed, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, I mean, I get it from her side, but from the Justice Department, from the FBI side, why? I mean, this is what this thing is about, is the whole email thing. And here's what her consigliere, if you will, and and who knows? Has anything come out about any details about the Ooma interview?
Nothing that I've read.
I haven't either.
And the only thing I've heard of, I don't know if they've actively interviewed Guccifer yet. I know Fox interviewed him, but I don't know if the FBI has yet.
I think he said he whether it's true or not, I believe he is on the record for saying that he has talked to them.
Okay, so yeah, he did. So if he did talk to them, and Fox interviewed him, and he said he breached her system twice, so they need to prove that. And if that's approved, then, and of course they said they want to talk to Hillary herself in the next couple weeks.
Yeah. There was also an unsourced or unconfirmed, both I suspect, story that there was a debate going on in the Kremlin. Did you see this?
I didn't.
That there are in the neighborhood of 20 to 25,000 emails that they have of Hillary's, and whether or not they should release those. Now that sounds like something, ooh, that's really cool, but we don't know if it's true or not, but I have read that two different places.
If that were to be true, then that would seal the case. Because if they have, I mean, that would be immediate proof without a need for any investigation.
And it has nothing to do with intent. It is zero to do with intent and zero to do.
And that's the contract that she signed says there does not need to be intent. Negligence is not based on intent.
Did you see
they could indict.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all I was going to say. Is they could indict. That is a certain possibility. It's just an atmosphere I'm getting that they won't. But that's just my hunch.
Did you see the Jake Tapper clip I put up yesterday?
I have not had time to watch it yet, but I heard it was pretty freaking great.
Kudos to Jake Tapper. By the way, I no longer watch Trump News Network, and the first show I left was the morning show of Fox and Friends and Trump. Yeah. And then just slowly, I mean, I do watch The Five because I think it's entertaining. And then I do watch Special Report when Brett Baer is not out. I love me some Charles Krauthammer. That's it. I used to watch O'Reilly, but I can't even hardly watch O'Reilly anymore. And Hack Hannity makes me want to.
He's terrible.
Just throw something at my television. But no, Tapper was talking about this thing, and it was just outstanding. This notion of, she has said multiple times. She said it again last week. Absolutely did nothing wrong. She was absolutely permitted. Those are her words. Absolutely permitted to use a private server. And he goes through that. He teamed up with factcheck.org and looked into this stuff. And he says, this is a quote from him, and it's in the clip. A quote, was Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server for official business while she was Secretary of State, quote, absolutely permitted? No, that's not true. Here's what he explained. He says she was only permitted to use a private server because she permitted herself to do so. And he continued, he said, technically there was, quote, there was no one absolutely prohibiting her, but no one signed off on her using it either. Yet she runs around, calling it what does she call it? A security review. Of course, the FBI's knocked that down. We don't do security reviews. We do investigations.
Yeah. We do criminal investigations.
Yeah, criminal investigations. I mean, you don't you don't grant someone immunity if you're doing a security review, right?
Yeah.
So, but no, if this were a Republican, the old kind of joke, it would have been in jail already, but there would for sure be an indictment. They would have probably been driven out by their own party at this point.
Yeah, the Republicans, I mean, as unpleasant as they are now, they still have some integrity left, and they would have driven someone like Hillary out a long time ago, I hope. But if this were a Republican, they'd be in, they'd reopen Alcatraz and put them in there.
Oh, absolutely. Put the thumb screws on them. And then, of course, you have, the devil spawn herself, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, just flying wingman for Hillary. It's just, that's another person, man. I just can't. I mean, there are certain people, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, when she's, she just gets that shrill thing going on. If I happen to be sitting here writing and one of them comes on, I have to put my fingers in my ears and hum until I can get to the controller and mute it. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is one of those people, but she just drives me crazy about this. She says the thing's not even, investigation is not even about Hillary in the first place. Like, how do you know? But yeah, so it'd be interesting. Wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall in the next week or two when Hillary sits down with the FBI?
Yes, I wish I had friends in the FBI who could give me some information, but they don't.
Have them crawl up into like an air duct or something and see if they can't get a recording. I don't know. I tend to agree with you. In fact, there will be no indictment. The thing is, well, we have like the equivalent of the old Saturday Night Massacre during a Watergate in the Nixon era, where not firings necessarily, but, people from Comey or people under him, if an indictment doesn't happen, resignations and stuff. And that, I suspect that would only happen if there was a referral for an indictment and then the Justice Department, a.k.a. Loretta Lynch, said no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's that's the problem, is that it's ultimately up to the Justice Department. And although it was reported a month or two ago that should the Justice Department deny an indictment request from the FBI would, quote, go public with what they had regardless. Because I don't know if Comey himself said that or someone else, an inside source in the FBI said that.
I'm guessing an inside.
Yeah. And so I think that would be interesting. And especially the fact that they said that as far back as they did, they have something.
You don't, if you don't have something, first of all, if you have something, you don't grant someone immunity in the first place, because you just don't do that. You don't do that on a hunch. You know why you're granting it based on, kind of some beating around the bush, at least conversations. Mm-hmm. Now, that's the guy whose emails have disappeared, right? They can't find them.
Well, his immunity deal was interesting. I understand why they did it, because he was the one who set up her server.
I do too.
I would advise, and I'm not a part of the FBI, but I would advise them to give immunity to Ooma and Cheryl Mills, anyone close to Hillary who could take her down. If the FBI is truly wanting to get to the source of the problem, there's going to be a need for more deals.
I've thought that too, but what would be the over-under on Cheryl Mills or Ooma throwing Hillary under the bus after all of the years and stuff they've been through with this woman? Of course, they would go to prison for lying if they were caught. But geez.
The FBI has to make it enough of a threat that if we indict Hillary, or if we go after Hillary, we will take you down with her, unless you take this deal. And they have to make that convincing enough for them. And for them, as close as they are to Hillary, it would be difficult.
Well, I suspect the end of this is going to be no indictment, and she will declare victory, and she was right all along. And once again, the Clinton escape happens.
It's a cycle. It'll continue. The beat goes on.
So we only have a couple minutes. Let me ask you to just weigh in a bit on, in fact, we do have 2 minutes. Real quick, Obama going after the, first we have the North Carolina thing, and then Obama going after the schools, the public schools. Mm-hmm. Did you read Victoria Taft's thing? I reposted it. This is hilarious. Victoria Taft, she writes for us as well. She says, she says, Ronald Reagan, 1976. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Barack Obama, 2016. Mr. Principal, tear down this stall. I loved that. So what do you think about him? Is he just sticking it in everybody's face now because he knows he can? He's on the way out.
Yeah, he's throwing everything against the wall. It's what every president does. Specifically liberals, obviously. They have no re-election, so they throw everything against the wall to see what sticks. And that is what he's doing. He's threatening federal funding for schools if they don't comply with his quote advice. They've put gender identity under Title IX, under sex.
It's unbelievable.
So it's just, he says, it's just advice, but it's not. It's a directive. So
no. This will go to the Supreme Court. How many states on board now? I don't know, 16 or something like that. But he did. You know what? He just, whatever. I mean, you mentioned the federal funds he's threatening to withhold, suggesting that it might happen. I mean, so I reposted a tweet from someone on Facebook this morning. Obama threatens to withhold federal funds from schools over transgender bathrooms, but had no problem releasing billions of dollars to Iran. Two different stories, but again, this guy, he can't be gone fast enough.
Yeah, he's looking for a legacy, so he's desperately just tossing everything against the wall to see what sticks for his legacy.
He is.
And he's hoping trans issues will do that.
He is. Anyway, look, man, we're out of time. I can't even believe it. I always have a good time with you when you come on. So we'll have to do it again.
All
right. Frank Camp, everybody. Frank, thanks. We'll talk soon, all right?
Yeah, follow me at Frank D. Camp on Twitter.
Frank P. Camp on Twitter, and follow Frank on IJR as well, because Frank writes some good stuff. Good guy. All right, Frank.
Yes, share my articles.
Share his articles. See you, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, Jessica, we like Frank. Frank's always he's one of those guys. He has some connections. I don't have any connections because I live in flyover country. But Frank's in Manhattan. He knows some people and places. So anyway,
you're bound to meet people there for sure.
Huh?
You're bound to meet people in New York.
Between the people in D.C., because that's where the office is, right outside of D.C., and they're running around talking to Congress. When I say the people, I mean our people, our writers and editors, running around talking to. Well, heck, they did all those kind of funny commercial things with Lindsey Graham coming into the office and all these different folks. But so I'm in Indianapolis. I do what I can do. You know what I mean?
Yes.
All right. Speaking of do what I can do, I think now I need to do getting us out of here. You guys, thanks for listening. That hour went quickly. We will be back Wednesday. We're on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. As always, you can always pick up the podcasts immediately after the show and every other podcast before on the link I post. This is Lanterns Radio Network. This is Mike Miller for Jessica Jane. We will see you Wednesday. Thanks for listening.